Indeed, my fellow Reds, what would Fergie do if he were at the helm and we found ourselves in this utter crisis that we find ourselves in at the moment? So I thought this would be an appropriate t-shirt to put on. And yes, this is going to be a rant, but it'll be a polite rant, because if I said this as I really wish, there's no doubt that I would be banned from all forms of social media. Not a happy camper at the moment. In fact, I've been following my beloved Man United for now about 56 years. Followed them through thick and thin, through relegation even in the past. And I can say quite categorically that I don't think I've ever felt as disgruntled as I do at the moment with the club. Relegation was a flipping breeze compared to this, but possibly that's because I was a lot younger, less grumpy than I am these days, and also social media was not even on the radar at that point in time. So before discussing the state of our club and the recent transfer window, let's talk a little bit about the Spurs game. In fact, it wasn't a game, it was a flipping debacle. It was absolutely humiliating. Unacceptable load of utter crap that was dished up by those pretenders in the red shirts on the day. But I think many of us, before the game started and we saw the team lineups, could have predicted that we were in for a difficult time. Now, if you look at the 3 games preceding the Spurs game, we scored 9 goals, albeit 2 of them in the Carabao Cup against weakened opposition, and 1 of them in the league against Brighton, where of course we deserved to be slaughtered, not come out as winners on the day, but the record books will of course show that we won that game. So going into the Spurs game, there was a lot of speculation in terms of what the lineup would be. And I think we pretty much guessed that Lindelof would be dropped for Eric Bailly. And when you look at the starting 11 on the day, I think many would say that that was United's best starting 11. And it certainly was the tried and tested starting 11 that we saw towards the end of last season, post-lockdown, that achieved some very good results. Of course, I, like many of you, am an armchair expert. And I thought that Spurs would be very aggressive in the midfield, very quick on the break. And I thought that United should have started with at least a midfield diamond, or with 4 in the midfield, or even 3 at the back in a 3-5-2 formation, as we've played against Spurs in the past. But that wasn't to be. So we lined up with our typical 4-3-3 formation. De Gea in goals, Wan-Bissaka, Bailly, Maguire, Shaw. Midfield 3, Matic, Pogba and Bruno, and up front, Greenwood, Martial and Rashford. Now, when you looked at the Spurs lineup, they also lined up 4-3-3, which was uncharacteristic. And I think a lot of people, a lot of United fans, looked at that Spurs lineup with Aurier and Davidson in the back 4, thinking, well, we could get at them. Yeah, well, we did get at them for the first 2 minutes of the game, and that's when it ended. But for me, what was key were the midfield 3 that Spurs fielded. A really aggressive midfield 3. Ndombele, Sissoko and Højbjerg. None of them exactly artists with the ball, but all of them hard tackling midfielders. And for me, that's where the game went awry, besides all the ridiculous defensive errors. And of course, Spurs started with a very, very mobile front 3, probably as pacey as our front 3, if not pacier, Kane, Son and Lamela. We'll talk about Lamela a little bit later, because he's a nasty fecker, is Lamela, always at the edge of trouble, and how he didn't get a red card is absolutely iniquitous as far as I'm concerned, but be that as it may. So that concerned me, because if you look at the 3 that play in midfield for United, for me there's no cohesion amongst them. Bruno plays in a sort of advanced wandering role where he's given a free rein to do as he pleases and try and thread those amazing through balls. Matic is pretty static in front of the back 3, and Pogba kind of strolls around. A guy that I have to say I've championed his cause, but I'm losing patience with, or I've actually lost patience with. So for me, that was a big issue. Anyway, those of you who may have been on Mars or fast asleep and didn't see the game, let's just speak about the goals quickly. United got off to a flyer. We kicked off. Rashford sped down the wing, won a throw-in, ball towards the box, a threaded pass from Bruno to the feet of Martial, and he was brought down by Davidson. No question about it. Stonewall penalty, 1-0 to United in the second minute. Penalty was given after 31 seconds. Bruno's 20th penalty in a row. The guy's absolutely lethal from the spot. So that was it. We were a goal to the good. Now, schoolboy coaching. When are you at your most vulnerable? You're at your most vulnerable when you've just scored a goal. So what do? Instead of shoring up, we give away a stupid free kick that Maguire gives away. Retract that. That's the second goal. Let's go back. The first goal. Spurs go straight onto the attack. The ball comes into the box, the ball bobs up, and Maguire, God knows where he's heading the ball towards, but it's Keystone Cop stuff. He heads the ball, it hits Bailly on the head, it cannons back to him. He tries another header back to De Gea, it's a weak header. Shaw goes for the ball, and Maguire actually grabs a hold of him, pulls him out the way, by which time Ndombele has cut in and he smashed the ball home. So that's goal number one. No sooner had we kicked off than Maguire concedes a free kick. Now, another schoolboy rule. When you've conceded the free kick, stand on the ball. Don't let them take a quick free kick. In Son, they've probably got the fastest player in the league. And I don't like praising other teams on this channel, but I have to say this guy is one of the most clinical players I've ever seen. He's an absolute joy to watch, except when he's playing against you. So quick free kick from Harry Kane. Son gets the ball. He cuts between Bailly and Luke Shaw very cleverly, dinks the ball into the far corner. Could De Gea have come out a bit quicker? I don't know, but that's 2-1 after 6 or 7 minutes. We then commit defensive suicide after Martial has been sent off. Now, remember, Martial was sent off when the score was 2-1. Now, if you look at the footage, that bastard Lamela sticks his elbow into Martial's chin. No question about it, he instigates it. No excuses, though. Martial should not retaliate. Retaliate he does, and Lamela falls to the ground as if he's been shot between the eyes. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. And if this is what young guys are going to be watching and emulating, well, I feel sorry. And, you know, football we call the beautiful game. There was nothing beautiful about that. It was cheating. It was disgusting. What was equally disgusting was how quick the referee was in terms of sending off Martial and not going and analysing footage. And I have to say that VAR showed absolutely no balls with respect to this, because it's blatant that Lamela has instigated this. And the referee that gives comments in the studio, old Dermot, even he felt that the decision was wrong, which is, he normally sticks up for the referees. And it should have been yellow cards for both of them or red cards for both of them. But now United are reduced to 10 men. And what do? Panic station set in. Now, for me, a coach worth his salt is down on the touchline, marshalling the troops at that point in time. But Ollie sits on his jack watching Netflix while this is all going on. So now Spurs get their third goal when Eric Bailly commits defensive suicide by playing a ball across the box. Harry Kane must have thought Christmas had come early. He pushes the ball back across the box to Son. Back it comes to him, and he's got one of the easiest goals that he's ever scored. 3-1. To rub salt into the wound, Spurs get the ball wide right. Now, Shaw and Maguire. Maguire runs out to the left-back position. Luke Shaw needs to run into the centre-back position, but he's ball-watching. The ball comes out to the flank. Kane smashes it through Maguire's legs. Shaw is nowhere to be seen. Son nips in, and a second nutmeg through De Gea's legs. 4-1, and for me, game, set, and match. Game was over by then. So, to say at halftime we should have done this or done that, etc., would have made absolutely no difference. So the second half becomes damage limitation with some strange substitutions. He takes off Bruno and Matic, he puts on Fred and McTominay. And our 10 men couldn't muster up a single shot on goal in that second half of any value. Spurs went on to score 2 more goals. The first of which from Aurier. Aurier, who last season looked a soft touch, probably had the game of his life. We made the guy look like flipping Pele on the day. He cuts in, he smashes a shot across the box. That's 5. And the 6th goal, Paul Pogba gives away a penalty and finds it quite humorous at the end of the day. So an absolutely humiliating defeat. What about the players? Player ratings? Well, I mean, this will be a quick one. David De Gea, can we fault him for any of the goals? For me, his biggest fault is he doesn't come off his line quickly enough. I thought he could have been off his line for a couple of those goals. He had 1 or 2 decent saves, 4 out of 10 on the day. Wan-Bissaka, I don't know what's happened to him. He's lost form. He's hopeless going forward. He left that right flank exposed on numerous occasions again. I thought he had a very poor game, 3 out of 10. Eric Bailly put his body on the line a few times, but he gave away that pass, which was ridiculous. He looked impulsive, impetuous, 3 out of 10. Harry Maguire. How this guy's the captain, I don't know. He shows no leadership whatsoever on the field, and he had an absolute howler on the day. I don't know if this is a hangover from the incident that occurred in Mykonos, but Maguire for me gets 0 out of 10 on the day. Luke Shaw's positional play was terrible. He didn't get much chance going forward. He didn't defend well. He gets 3 out of 10 on the day. Matic got subbed at half-time. He gave the ball away needlessly on several occasions, 3 out of 10. Paul Pogba, absolutely pathetic. Languid, passing terrible. And as I said earlier, I've been a champion of his cause. I would drop him from the team. I'll give him 1 out of 10 on the day. Bruno Fernandes, well, there's a lot of talk that Bruno didn't come out for the second half because he had a major bust-up with Harry Maguire at half-time. If that's the case, and Bruno gave Harry a piece of his mind, I'd have to give him a good mark for it, but I don't know if that's true. He got his penalty. He didn't do anything else during the half, 4 out of 10. Mason Greenwood, ineffective on the day. And a big problem for me is Greenwood and Rashford don't track back to defend. A big problem on the day where the Spurs fullbacks had full reign of those flanks. They had us on our back foot the whole time. We don't have attacking fullbacks, and maybe Telles will bring some attacking nous to the team. But Greenwood, a poor game. Anthony Martial, yes, he earned us the penalty, got a stupid red card. He gets 1 out of 10 on the day. And Marcus Rashford, anonymous, but I'd like to see Marcus defending better, 3 out of 10 on the day. Fred and McTominay, well, I didn't really see them in the second half, so I give them 3 out of 10 each. As for our manager on the day, I really think that he showed no balls whatsoever. I think that he got totally outsmarted by Jose on the day in terms of the tactics. He should have been up and at the officials. He should have been on the touchline, marshalling the troops. I'll give him 1 out of 10 on the day. I think that tactically, at times, he's utterly clueless. All right, so that's the end of the Spurs game where we were absolutely humiliated, and hopefully we'll never see the likes of that again. What about the transfer window? Well, we've signed 5 players. That's half a team. But I think the transfer window has been absolutely pathetic. If you look at who we've brought in Donny van der Beek, which I think is a good signing. I'd like to see him in the team, and I'd throw Pogba out the team now, and I'd replace him with van der Beek. So he's one for the future. He's a good player. He's done well at Ajax. No issue with respect to that. The Jadon Sancho saga absolutely defies belief. I mean, it's been going on for about 10 weeks. Social media have had a field day, and I cannot understand why every United transfer or potential transfer, social media is flooded. But when clubs like Real Madrid, Barca, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, when they do transfer deals, boy, it happens. There's no discussion about it. There's no speculation. It happens. I don't know if this is the United Media Department. I don't know if it's journalists being naughty, bloggers being naughty, but it's flipping infuriating. And this Jadon Sancho business is going to be the Wesley Sneijder saga of modern times. I cannot fathom that. If you look at the other players that we've brought in, does it ring of desperation, going down to the wire? I mean, the haggling over Tellez, according to the media, went on for a couple of weeks, over a couple of million euros. Yes, it's a lot of money for me, but it's a flipping pocket money and petty cash for the owners. The haggling, I mean, you want the player, go out and get him. To haggle over a couple of million euros, pathetic. Anyway, we get him. I don't know much about him. An attacking fullback. He's had one appearance for the Brazilian national team. He scored 24 goals in league football. I don't know if that's good or bad. Apparently he's a good penalty taker. So he'll challenge for that left back position, which is good because I think we need Brandon Williams to challenge Wan-Bissaka for the right back position. Then we've brought in Cavani. Now Cavani in his day was absolutely lethal. At Napoli, he was unbelievable. At PSG's highest scorer in history, 200 goals for them. So the guy can find the net. But somewhat worrying is he hadn't played competitive football since March. And this really smacks of the deals that we did for guys like Falcao, which was an absolute disaster. Cavani's had a couple of big injuries. But of course, we'd like him to emulate strikers like Henrik Larsson and Zlatan. That would be fantastic. And best case scenario is that our young strikers learn off of him and he scores some goals. So I can't really comment with respect to him. Hopefully he will be a success. But when you think in the preceding window, we brought in a journeyman striker, Igalo, who with the exception of getting a great goal against Lask in the Europa League has really done nothing. He sat on the bench and I think he's getting £190,000 a week for that. So, you know, these last minute Larry deals, I just don't understand them. You've wanted to splash out all this. You've splashed out all this cash. There was a clause you could have gotten Sancho for 108 million. We're told United bid 90 for him. Put in the extra money, get a marquee signing. So this I just don't understand. And then we've signed these two youngsters, Facundo Palestri, Uruguayan from Penarol, recommended by Diego Forland, and Amat Diallo, who's meant to be the hottest property in Italian football. Well, we've heard this before, and Diallo is going to cost £37 million with add-ons. He'd better be bloody good for that amount of money. His work permit needs sorting out. He'll only get there in January. Will he be the answer to the right wing? Well, we rewind to when we signed a relatively unknown Cristiano Ronaldo, and look how he panned out. So maybe one of these lads will do it. But was this a good transfer window? It was abysmal, because we haven't addressed the major issues that we needed. A right winger, a centre back. Now, work that one out, because I can't. I absolutely cannot work that out. Now, what about the state of the club, and what about the coaching? Well, for me, the coaching leaves a lot to be desired. United have got this thing now of playing out from the back. We're not good enough to play out from the back, and every time they try and play out from the back, it looks like we're going to concede a goal. Now, these are instructions from the coach's bench. Surely he can see this. In the last couple of league games, we have been attacked down the opposition's right wing. The ball has swung over to the left flank that has been left unguarded. Now, I mean, we see this sitting at home watching this. Surely the coaching staff pick up on this. And again, the pace seems to have gone out of our game. After lockdown, that was the hallmark of the team, playing at pace. That seems to have vanished. Solskjaer wanted the fittest team. I'm sorry, I can't subscribe to this thing. These guys are tired. They're a bloody bunch of overpaid prima donnas. Some of them are stealing a living. And you know what? I expect better from them. Now let's look at the owners and the board. Now the Glazers are not new to the club. The Glazers came in 2005. So Fergie was there during the Glazers. So was David Gill. When Fergie and David Gill were there, the transfer policy wasn't a problem. We had a CEO in terms of Gill. He'd go to the board. These are the players that we want. We'd invariably get them. All this changed when Fergie and David Gill both retired in 2013. And for me, David Gill is as big a loss as Ferguson to this club, because in his shoes stepped this flipping prat, Ed Woodward. Now, if you look at the guys running the board, you've got Ed Woodward, who's the executive vice chairman. You've got Matt Judge, who's the head of corporate development, and we're told brokers the transfer deals. And we've got Richard Arnold, who's the group MD. Now, they're a nice little clique of guys because they all went to Bristol University. They're merchant bankers. They've all worked for big accountancy firms. They know diddly squat about football. And these are the guys that are running transfers. I ask you, All sane clubs have a director of football. This idiot Woodward told us a couple of years ago, we're getting a director of football. Well, he's a self-appointed director of football, and he manages to cock up almost every single transfer deal. Look at how Ajax function under Edwin van der Sar. Look how Bayern Munich function under Rummenigge. I mean, these are brilliantly run clubs, and we've got a flipping bunch of clowns running the club. In addition to that, what about finances? The journalists tell us that the Glazers have plundered £920 million out of the club in the last 10 years in a combination of dividends, loans, interest and debt repayments. Now, this money, as far as I'm concerned, should be ploughed back into the club. But you can't argue on that. They own the club. They can do what they want with it. But these guys are inappropriate owners. No football men around at the helm of our club. And if you look at transfer deals over the last few years, the cash gets splashed at the beginning of seasons when we're not in the Champions League, because obviously that we need to be in the Champions League to bring in revenue. So that's when big signings are made. But when we get into the Champions League, like we are this season, the money seems to dry up. And for me, this is a big issue. We came third in the league last season, a springboard to potentially improving this season. Surely you go in there and say, right, how can we keep up with our rivals? You shore up the squad, but they didn't do that. But the owners will probably be delighted because Ed Woodward, in his marketing genius that he is, he'll sign up 20 new sponsors, and that's all that really counts for these guys. Have a look at the dead wood at the club. Guys like Jones, Rojo, Lingard, the unfortunate Romero. Yes, Pereira's gone out on loan recently. These guys, no club wants to touch them because they're stealing a living at United. They're earning 75 to 120 million pounds a week. No club will pay them that amount of money. So it suits them to occupy a place on the bench. Who's given them prolonged contracts? Every one of them, Ed Woodward. If you look at players that Solskjaer has wanted, he wanted Jude Bellingham, he wanted Haaland, he wanted Sancho. Can you imagine how we would have done with those players in the team? They were all poo-pooed and scuttled by Woodward and his board. You need a centre-back. Upakamo, Koulibaly, they've got buyout clauses. Go and pay the money. We heard yesterday Arsenal just had to approach the Spanish league to activate a clause in Partey's contract without even talking to Atletico Madrid, and they get him. What happened to Man United, the great negotiators? Well, this is the problem because you've got idiots negotiating. The last time we signed a wide player was Fergie's last signing, Wilfried Zaha. We know where that went, okay? We've been crying out for a player in that position. Where is he? So, you know, it's absolutely infuriating to witness all of this. And for me, a great pity, and I think probably Woodward counts himself fortunate that spectators aren't allowed in the ground. Because if spectators were allowed in the ground, I would like them to be booing the board. I would like banners to be kicking them, to be advocating that they be kicked out, protest marches, etc., etc. But fans have got short memories, because if we go and win the next couple of games, then everything will be fine. But it's not fine. I think the club is absolutely rotten to the core. I think that the owners don't give a jot about football. I think that the board, obviously, they are the lackeys to the owners. All they're interested in is the bottom line financially. And the manager is toothless. He can't come out and be outspoken against them, because what will happen to him? Exactly what happened to Jose. And at the risk of incurring the wrath of many of you who are bold enough to watch this rant, I actually, for one, was sorry that Mourinho left. And if you look at what Mourinho is doing at Spurs at the moment, the guy's a class act. And why did Mourinho leave? Well, you'll say that he poisoned the dressing room, the players, etc., etc. He left because the directors undermined what his plan was for the club. He wanted to bring in players. They wouldn't bring in the players, so he turned it into a septic relationship. And I think the same thing is going to happen with Solskjaer. I don't expect Solskjaer to be there for much longer. They'll throw him under the bus. We'll get in a new manager, and it'll be a rerun exactly of what is going on. Coming down to the players, I think that when you look at the state of the world at the moment in this COVID pandemic, people are scrambling for a living. People have lost their jobs, their homes, etc. And these guys are earning obscene amounts of money and not dishing up the goods. Now, I know that they're offered contracts, their agents broker the deals, etc. But come on, earning that amount of money, I expect to be entertained and not dished out the utter crap that this club are dishing out at the moment. Where's this going to go? I have absolutely no idea where this will go forward, but I fear for the future of our club. I think we are in for some lean years, as long as this absolutely inept bunch of dickheads are running the board and are owners of the club. Rant over. I'd be happy to take comments from you. Please, some constructive comments. And Spurs fans, shut up. I don't want to hear from you. You humiliated us. Take care all. Speak to you soon. Cheers.